and welcome to the Culture Bunker. Don't forget to subscribe, like, whatever. Now, people often ask me when I was on TV doing the iconic show The Word between 90 and 95, they say, who was the most interesting or the best person that you ever interviewed? And I interviewed lots of people, Whitney Houston, Tom Hanks, Arnold Schwarzenegger. But for me, by far the most interesting person that I met and interviewed, and the biggest thrill for me, was the late James Brown, the Godfather of Soul. I think there's only Elvis Presley at the time and maybe Michael Jackson who actually sold more records in the USA than James Brown. And you've got to think that James Brown invented funk music. You know, he was a machine, wasn't he? He was, you know, the kind of funk machine. He was just something else, Mr. Dynamite, as they called him. What was interesting about the time that I interviewed him was he was in prison in Aiken, South Carolina. And we, in order to get this interview with him, had to fly over to South Carolina and actually bribe his prison guards. He used to get out for day release once a week to work with recovering drug addicts and winos. And we bribed his warders, basically, $1,500 to take a long walk around the block for about 3 or 4 hours so that we could kidnap him off and do an interview with him. In fact, we overran and had to give him another $200. And we took him to a doctor's house, and there I got to interview James Brown all on his own. And because it was being shot on film, it meant that I ended up sitting with James Brown for an hour and a half while he was at a piano, just chatting away to him. And he was like playing the piano, giving me a private concert. The weirdest thing was, you know, because I was a geek about all the great vocalists of that era, the late great Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson, Clyde McPhatter, Little Willie John, that James Brown was able to do a kind of, you know, like Sammy Davis Jr. used to take off Frank Sinatra. He could do them. So he was like singing songs and singing like Little Willie John and singing, you know, like Jackie Wilson. I mean, an absolutely fascinating bloke. Very, very hot. August, Aiken, South Carolina, 100 degrees in the shade. And then to go and meet James Brown, you had to address him as Mr. Brown. You had to wear a shirt with a collar and buttons and no jeans. I got away with a pair of white Levi's. I know, bad taste, but it was the summer of 1990. Anyway, have a look at it. This is it. As it went out at the time, me in a bad shirt that I actually ripped on his mosquito netting in front of the door as I went into the doctor's house to meet him. And, well, the rest is history. This is me meeting James Brown. Fantastic. People over in England now think that James Brown is actually free.
No, I'm not free. The only thing free is me in my spirit. But my body's not free. I'm incarcerated, but I hope to be out whenever, you know, as long as I don't lose my integrity and my dignity to get out. I had a chance. I could have been free from the very, very beginning if I had pleaded guilty, a guilty plea for something that I'm not guilty of. So I just took time instead.
What was it like for you in prison?
Well, it's quite a lesson that you don't really want to learn. It's a very great awareness. And it also puts together a lot of things that you've probably been thinking of all along. Things that you were somewhat in the dark about, and they kind of come to light a little bit, you know.